This is Comic Geek Speak, episode 1937, Off the Rack Review of Ghost Machine.
You got it on Wednesday, and you was psyched about it, going to the volume up. These guys will talk about it, everything that geeks love. From cakes to laser beams, opinions like the seasons, on everything you read in comics, movies, games, toys, artists, Comic Geek Speak, Comic Geek Speak, Comic Geek Speak, Comic Geek Speak, Comic Geek. Uniting the world's mightiest heroes, this is...
I'm Shane Kelly.
I'm Peter Rios.
I'm Brian Chrisman.
I'm Adam Murdo.
And I'm Brian Deemer.
Comic Geek Speak!
I don't know, two Brians in a row. That sounds weird.
Oh, yeah.
I think we have space Brians apart before the universe collides.
All right, we are here to talk some Ghost Machine comics, but Brian, we have some Brian with a Y. We have some anniversary news updates.
Yeah, we've already, we have 10 sponsorship spots available, and we've already sold 5 of them.
Oh, wow.
So this is fantastic. We have a longtime friend and listener, Wayne Cordova, wants everybody to know about. He's got season 2 of his new podcast, One to Grow On. It begins in May. It's an 80s and 90s theme podcast. Last season, they covered Mr. T, He-Man, and the Cola Wars. And this season, they're going to be doing some 90s stuff like American Gladiator, Wayne's World, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the movie. So that's one to grow on podcasts.com. One of our listeners, and I'm a bit of a fool because I don't remember who they were, but their wife runs a business where she makes hand-sewn cat toys and dog and cat treats. It's made by Trisha.com. And so if you need stuff for your pets, show a little love for a listener of the show. And she's got if you enter promo code Comic Geek Speak, it's good for 10% off your order on the website. So check that out, madebytrisha.com. And Peter, why don't you can you fill us in here on Mike Atchison and
Sure.
his stuff going on?
Mike Atchison, another longtime listener. Really, the listeners came out in full support right away. And Mike has been listening to the show for a while. He's met a few of us on the convention tour.
I've broken bread with this man.
Oh, nice. And he has a podcast that he does with several of his friends called the Campus Comics Cast. And that's been around since 2017. Just like us, they are all friends who met at their comic store, Campus Comics. And then in our discussions, he has emailed me several times. He landed on an idea for a podcast called Mike's Comic Shop Roadshow. He travels a lot. So as he travels, he goes state to state, including Hawaii.
Nice.
And
Wow.
he interviews comic shop retailers, owners, managers about their store, why they got into the business, et cetera, et cetera. And then they recommend a trade for him, and then he brings on a guest to talk about that trade. So for instance, I was on one of those episodes and we talked about Farmhand from Image Comics, a book that I never read before, so and it's not only, he doesn't only travel through the States. He traveled to Australia, not just one comic store, 2 comic stores in Australia. So this is,
Crikey.
it's a really great podcast for that because you get, retailer experience from all over the country, all over the world. And it's just cool to hear how they run their store, why they run their store. So, and he was, I believe, Brian, you said he was the first one that reached out to us when he heard.
First one within hours of the episode being launched.
Wow.
It was already. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
So we have 5 spots left, And if you want in, it's only $100, and you get a mention on every episode from now until the 20th anniversary, and you'll get 2 full like sponsorships on a future episode somewhere in the next 11 months. So that's the deal, and you can send those inquiries to Brian with a Y at comicgeekspeak.com.
And can we at least say that the other two, Dave Williams and Martheus Wade?
Yeah.
We have,
Yep.
we'll get more information on what they want us to talk about. But again, more long time
Yeah.
CGS. They really stepped up, which is amazing.
Yes, thank you very much.
Before we keep going on the updates, hello, Adam.
Harumph. Hello there.
Freaking technology.
I was just gonna say.
The ghost machine episode. I've got a few machines here I'd like to turn into ghosts.
You want to give us an I'm Adam so I can splice it into the.
I'm Adam Murdo. Don't you forget it.
Oh, funny. Where are we in the attendance so far?
We're about 90 people already. Or we're actually a little over 90 people. So again, like astonishing.
Yeah, pretty good for like
It's
almost
only
a
been
year
about a
out.
month,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. We should also update people. If you haven't followed either the YouTube or the Patreon, we are number one getting new people on both, which is amazing. And because Brian and Brian, it's like spy versus spy, SPY versus SPI. Spearheading some really great stuff. So, Pants, you want to give us your Patreon stuff?
Sure. First of all, yes, we do have a Patreon. It was, Brian, help me out. It was, I guess, set up, I think maybe during the pandemic, like in 2020, around that time,
Something
think.
like that. Yeah.
As I understand it, it was set up mostly to, help pay the bills. We sort of taken this on as more of a hobby now and didn't really chase down sponsorship. So we needed just a little money to help pay for things like the web hosting, the Zoom, things like that. But there really wasn't much expectation at the time, as I understand it, for like any new material for that. It was more of just like, give us $1 a month or $2 or even $5 a month just to help us like keep the lights on, basically. Well, recently I kind of thought, well, I'd really like to do something for the people who really supported us, to just like give them back something for their hard-earned money. So a couple ideas get around in my head. But before I even put them up, the first thing I did was make sure I can work Patreon correctly. So back in 2020, on my own, some friends challenged me to do a podcast about my TV watching, my classic TV watching. So I made an episode as like a pilot about classic TV, did it on my own. About 22 minutes. It was a lot of work. So I didn't really go forward with it, but I sort of kept it under wraps since 2020. So I put that on Patreon first, see if I can get that work. It's audio only. Got a few nice responses for that. Then I dug through my archives of things, and back in 2016, there was an app called Periscope, which I believe was designed to like live stream on Twitter. I believe they've actually bought it out since then. But I did a test of that about 5 minutes long, the evening of the premiere of Captain America Civil War. I was actually at the CGS studio, did a little bit of recording outside, then went inside and caught a in-progress recording of a Crisis Tapes episode. Of course, that was all out of focus, testing the equipment, so I put that on Patreon. So yes, I can do a video. So then my idea I decided to put on. I had an idea called The Art of Pants, where I would show my art collection as a video for the Patreon supporters. I've got quite a collection. And I decided to sort of break things up into a different theme each episode of the artwork. I went with this idea because I wouldn't be on camera that much, which is a good thing. Focus mainly on the art, where I can talk a bit about its history, how I got it, things like that, and I can zoom in and zoom out on the art. And just to hear me talk about it would be no fun. So I had the other guys join me on the episode, and the first one is up. It was a lot of fun to do, and see everybody seemed to enjoy it. So I've already got the second one planned out. We're even setting up dates now to record that. So the working theory is you'll see that. I won't say once a month, but kind of close to that time frame. And as again, just more of a. I took it upon myself to say, hey, thank you for supporting us. If it gets more people to subscribe to Patreon, hey, maybe we can do more things like this. But it was more of just a thank you for those already subscribing and supporting us. But hey, the more the merrier. So yes, the art of pants.
It was a lot of fun.
Yes.
It was very cool, and the response from the viewers has been very positive. I
Yes.
think people are excited to see more.
And if you have supported us through Patreon, make sure your notifications are turned on so you know when these things drop. Because my friend John Burke was like,
Mm-hmm.
"Should I get notified about this?" It's like, well,
Mhm.
hopefully you'll see more than in the future, John, and you can watch them in a timely fashion.
Yeah, and I started doing I started playing around with YouTube. The whole show, this whole podcast started because I just like to fart around with new technology, right? And not that YouTube is new, but like I haven't really done any video stuff, right? Really. So I was kind of curious. So yeah, you should definitely go over to the CGS YouTube channel and check it out. I have a new series of shows that I just launched the first episode called What You Reading, and where I'm interviewing comic professionals and finding out what comics they're reading right now and enjoying, or are inspiring them, or whatever the case may be. Or maybe they hate it. I don't know. It's fine. It's like whatever they're reading that they want to talk about. That's the point. Um, not about their comics that they're working on, but stuff that they're reading as a fan of comics, right? That's the point. So I spoke to writer Tim Sheridan, and we had a really great conversation. And I think it was like a fun experiment. And I'm starting to get the hang of this video editing thing. I still have a whole lot to learn, but I muddled my way through it, and so I'm looking forward to getting episode 2 out probably about a week. I'm shooting for maybe every other week is what I hope. I mean, it depends on people's schedules and timing of scheduling of interviews and everything, but that's been really fun, and I'm looking forward to doing a whole lot more, hopefully,
Careful.
as well as the shorts. What do you say, Peter?
Careful, that word muddle, it's copyrighted.
Me a nickel dealer.
And I'm also like filling the gaps with I'm making shorts. I'm trying to do one a day on YouTube, taking Adam's old Mohatmu episodes and editing them into a short. YouTube has a 60-second limit, right? So I got 1 minute. Some of those entries are like 3+ minutes. So I got to chop a lot of crap out, but
Hey, not crap,
the
good
idea.
stuff. Come
Oh,
on,
you know what I
now.
mean. You know what I mean.
Come on now. You're sitting right there.
It's not Mert's fault. He just read the words, whether it's good or crap.
I take no offense, but I take offense on behalf of Mike Carlin and Mark Grunwald and the people who compile those entries in the first place.
Some of them are pretty hilarious though, where they say things like, so and so can lift 1,600 pounds, and then like the next person is like they can lift 700 pounds, and you're like, how did you decide that this person was this percent stronger than that person? Like, who was really was there really a chart, or they just pulling numbers out of their ass every month when they did a new character or whatever?
Little column A, little column B.
Yeah, I think so. That's amusing when I'm going through and editing them out. But they're really fun, and it's just something to for me to do. Really, I don't know. I'm just having fun. So.
And we got almost 90 new subscribers in a month. I mean, I know it sounds ridiculous to sort of cheer that on, but our whole podcast has always been about baby steps from episode 1, or when we interviewed Garib Sheamus, and he talked about Wizard early days, one thing leading to the next, and we've always done that. But so if you do follow us on YouTube, like So here we go. Like,
Ring the bell.
subscribe,
Ring the bell right here.
ring the bell, comment. The forums are going away,
Yeah.
so YouTube is a great place to dump comments on episodes, on shorts, on whatever. We'll try to read them, reply to them.
Well, I did. That was a point that I wanted to talk about. Right, is a lot of people when we were talking about pulling the plug on the forums, which will happen any day now. Right, there's a lot of people who aren't on Facebook, and there's fewer people every day. It's kind of dying, right? So, but I feel like pretty much every person in the world watches YouTube, right? Like you don't. It's just a thing that you're watching YouTube sooner or later, right? So if we move the conversation to YouTube, it's accessible for everyone, including people who don't want to go to Facebook. And it helps the algorithm promote our content, which means there's more people to join the conversation and do more, interactions, right? So it benefits all of the listeners and it benefits us in that we can, rebuild an audience like we used to have, right?
Yeah. And so, I mean, especially if you're already signed into Google, it's like it's all there. It's just all.
Yeah.
It's not like you have to sign up in anything extra. I mean, I was talking to Brian and I said I remember a conversation. We either did it over email or phone years ago that Brian was like, I want to do a TV show. I want to create like a TV something. I want to set up my basement to like have like some kind of thing. At one time we talked about like a trivia game, another point
Oh,
like an interview thing. And like so I mean it feels like in some ways it feels like um we're coming to the video stuff maybe late, but it has always been in our mind. Oh, for a long, long time.
I still, if I had an unlimited budget and unlimited time, I want to do a live in person, like with contestants, comic trivia game show where Adam is the host with like a wide lapel jacket and one of those long skinny microphones, and you have to slap the buzzer to answer the trivia question and people walk away with $1,000 or whatever. And I fly our listeners in from wherever they're in so they can compete in a game show. I mean, how freaking badass would that be? Oh
I
my God, the
remember
big
that
light bulbs like
conversation.
around
Yep.
oh my God, velvet
remember
walls
that.
or whatever. Come on.
You had me at wide lapels.
And Skinny Mike.
But we
Well,
might maybe
Gene
we could do the
Rayburn,
same
Mike.
thing,
Yeah.
but just on video somehow. Some version of that where we, zoom people in and
Yeah.
do live trivia or something. I don't know. It'd be fun.
Hey, 20th anniversary gathering. Be a pilot. I'm just saying.
Oh, I have it on my list. Like a
There
Zoom
is no
trivia
off
thing.
position on the Genius Switch.
That's on my list. Adam, who would you model yourself after? Gene Rayburn or Richard Dawson or who would you?
Well, I mean, the godfather of them all, in my opinion, is Bob Barker. But
Okay.
I think I've got a certain affinity for Bob Eubanks, too.
Well, with Mr. Eubanks, there was some talk at the time of doing like a newlywed style game with the geeks. Like I would pair up with Shane to see who knew each other better for like comics and things. And I recall that.
Great idea.
I think that was your idea. It was one of you guys' idea. It wasn't
I
my
remember
idea.
that. Now that you mentioned, I do remember that.
It wasn't my idea, but it was a great idea. We're gonna like pair up two of the geeks and just have like a newlywed style. Who knows who better?
The problem is I'm going to lose right now because I don't remember anything. So,
But it'd be about each other. Like, Peter like so long, and
That would
like,
be disastrous. That would be disastrous. And just like the newlywed game, we would argue with each other. We'd be mad at each other for
There'd
not.
be hurt feelings. It would start getting thrown around.
made for good TV.
but my God, would it be so much fun though?
We could have
Oh.
problems.
Again, 20th
Just-
anniversary in person get together. I'm just saying.
When we're doing it, Shane can't hold a Nintendo controller. Somebody's going to
Yeah.
get one thrown at their head.
Oh, see, that could be a question.
Really got to go old school listening to find out why that is.
That's a callback.
Oh.
Oh
That's
my
been years.
God.
Good heavens.
The amount of ideas that have been discarded over the years,
Mhm.
like,
If we had a dime for every idea.
oh,
Well,
all right. Shall we talk some comics?
So
Hell
that's
yeah.
We
All
shall.
right.
I'm excited.
Good. So
good.
we're talking about Ghost Machine. If you don't know what Ghost Machine is, it is a sub imprint at Image Comics. It is a creator owned company, but with a twist because everybody is in on the company as terms of being like co-founders and co-organizers, and they're all throwing their talent, their business savvy, their experience, and their creations into this. And
It's a shared universe.
Yeah.
most of it,
That's
most of it, yeah.
right. That's what makes it different from like Image or anything else. It's that you're going to be able to create characters, but then use other people's characters and their creations. And obviously, depends on the editor saying like, no, you can't use him. He's in outer space right now, or whatever the situation, right? But like this hasn't been done before, right? Like this is the first of its kind, I think, right? And that's pretty exciting.
That's what they're saying. Welcome to the first fully shared creator-owned universe. And you have people like Jeff Johns spearheading, at least writing the 3 books that we read for today. Gary Frank, Brian Hitch, um, Brad Anderson, Jason Fabik, uh, Rob Lee, Lamont McGee, Francis Manipul, Brad Meltzer, Yvonne Hayes, Peter Snyder, Peter Tomasi, Michael Zut, and there will be others as well. So this has been going on actually for a little while. So the first book to spin out of what was then known as Mad Ghost was called Geiger. And there was a 6-issue miniseries. Then there was a miniseries that was by Jeff Johns and Gary Frank and Brad Anderson and Rob Lee. Then there was a 6-issue miniseries called Junkyard Joe, also by the same creative team. Then there was like another Geiger 2-issue series, like an origin story called Ground Zero. Then there was a Ghost Machine one-shot. And even in Image Comics 30th anniversary anthology series, there was another one called, is it The Blizzard, I think? There was a story by Jeff Johns and an artist who escapes me. And apparently that also is supposed to be playing around in what they're calling the Unnamed. That's like one part of this shared universe. Characters like Geiger, Junkyard Joe, the other 2 that we read today. So we read Geiger #1, the new volume, Redcoat #1, and Rook Exodus #1. And 2 of those are in the same universe, Geiger and Redcoat. Yeah. And then there's like subdivisions, others like a horror line that'll come out later, a family line that'll come out later, but we're focusing just on these 3 here. So
I knew nothing about this essentially. I vague recollections of hearing a Jeff Johns announcement at New York Comic Con 2023, but this is like all new to me. Like I just was completely oblivious to all this. I'm not much in keeping with current comics, and this just went right by me. So I'm just kind of listening to what you're talking about, and didn't know all these things happened before these 3 books we read here.
and some of it I wonder where, some of the inspiration comes from, which I'm sure we'll get into once we get into the discussion. So we read, as I said, we read those 3. They came out on April 3rd, and this is a off the rack episode, so we are going to give our thoughts. We're going to go in depth, and we'll kick it off with what did you buy, what did you borrow, what did you pants? Buy, borrow, pants. If you had to pick without telling us the title, how many of each?
3 buys.
3 buys. Okay,
3
pants.
buys.
3 borrows.
3 borrows. Adam?
I'm gonna call it 2.5 buys, like 2 buys and a biaro, which I understand is inbounds.
Yes. Shane?
I think I had 3 buys.
Okay, I had 2 buys and a borrow. All right, so we're all over. That's interesting. That's good. Pants and Adam, what was the one that was like on the low end?
Well, for me, the biaro was actually the new Geiger #1.
What about you, Pants?
I think probably the Rook.
Rook Exodus?
Rook Exodus, yes.
Okay. I'm gonna go. My we'll start at the low end, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's terrible. It's just, I'm because mine was also Geiger. Even though I really liked, I went and read everything. That's sort of why I was
Oh,
hoping we would do this on another night because I was like, I'm reading everything. And the first issue miniseries I really, really liked because you got into the on the ground floor of who this character is. Um, a man who gets he has cancer, he's getting treatment, he gets caught up in a nuclear explosion because there's something called the unknown war, right? And nobody knows who started it, and it's here in America, and America is sort of subdivided now. Um, he put his family in a shelter, hoping that they would escape the tragedy. And for years, he protected them. He could never get into the shelter, but he wound up turning into a version of DC's Dr. Phosphorus in a way. this
Yeah.
this
It's definite similarity. Yeah, even
yeah.
in the color scheme.
yeah. So this man who is just, full of nuclear radiation, and the only way he can revert to normal is if he has these two boron rods. They almost look like Nightwing's screama sticks. And
Exactly.
Yeah.
he holds
Got,
them up into his back, and they act like a conduit to keep his
yeah,
power in
like
check.
cooling rods. Yeah.
Yeah, yep. So that miniseries, you got introduced to the world, you got introduced to the situation, you got introduced to Junkyard Joe, who as I said, got a new miniseries, and I really dug it. But then this new series came out, and I was like, oh, not as full in its storytelling. Still looks good, still interesting,
Hmm.
because there's a new premise, and he's on a new journey, um, but not as interesting as the first issue miniseries. Adam, did you read those first six?
Well, so half. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's enough to see the truth of your words there, Peter, that Johns and Frank didn't seem to be trying quite as hard with this one as Johns and his other collaborators were in the other first issues, because those were, first ever exposures, with the exception of like the occasional little story like the Ghost Machine one shot, for example. It's their first attempt to try and hook people in these characters. Geiger's been around for a while. They feel they don't need to sell him quite as hard. Is my thinking. So it didn't work quite as well for me as a first issue. Just kind of felt like they were just taking this character who already existed, gave us a couple little glimpses of his backstory, that he had a wife and kids before he turned into the glowing skeleton man and set off across this blasted landscape of future America. Uh, yeah, and also his new sidekick was a little bit of a turnoff.
Oh, I love that guy. I thought that's what sold me on the book. Like that was the hook.
Neil the Nuclear Knight.
Yeah.
Is it Neil or Nate?
Might be Nate.
Oh, I don't remember. Brian and Shane, these were buys for you. So have you read Geiger before, or what brought you to this?
So no, I didn't read Geiger before. I knew that there was a Ghost Machine one shot and then these things were coming out. And I did not know that there was previous to this. So now I'm curious, if I read those six, would I feel the same about this issue one? Out of the three, even though I'm curious and I put it as a buy, that was my least favorite issue of the three, but I would have still bought it because I was interested in what was going on. My thing with the sidekick, I was curious, like, okay, now that he's going to hang around this guy, is he going to die because he's going to get radioactive because he's hanging around with him? So now is that going to spiral into something different? But I thought it was an interesting issue. Again, not knowing there was something else, so I'm very curious to go back and try to find the others to read and see what I feel about this one compared to those.
My story goes like this. When the week they came out, I saw Rook Exodus on the shelf at the comic shop, and I was like, "Oh, Jeff Johns! Whoa, look at that artwork! Oh, it's like space and stuff. I'm gonna try this. This looks cool." I missed the whole. I didn't know anything about Ghost Machine, the announcement. I didn't know anything about any of it. Right? I bought the issue, knowing nothing about it. Took it home, read it, and went, "That was freaking cool." And then I saw all the stuff in the back about this whole thing, and it was like, oh. So then the next week when I went back, I bought the other two because I'm like, now I gotta know. And I don't know, I just devoured all of them. Like I loved them. You know me, I don't really think too deep on it. I'm just like, did it make me happy? Yes. sweet, right? Like that was really, I mean, that's really as deep as I go with all my entertainment. Was, did it make me happy? And the answer was yes. So I'm excited, but I'm like 5 times as excited collectively because of what it, the potential that it represents, right? This whole, a new universe, a shared universe, something new, right? So a lot of times, like Image, there's tons of new Image books all the time that are interesting or look interesting. And it's like, oh, it's a 6 issue miniseries, or maybe it lasts for 2 years or 3 years or something, and then it wraps up and then you're on your way, right? The next thing comes out. And they're great, but I think universes are what, like, really at the end of the day, like that's part of what we love so much, is this deep lore and these crisscross connections and all these characters that come and go and making appearances. And like sometimes you don't like a character, but then he shows up in a different book, and now the way that writer wrote him, you're like, oh, now I get it. Now I like this character. I never liked Green Lantern before, but then I read that issue and oh, now he's so cool. You know, like that kind of stuff happens all the time. And so there's more to like hold us and keep us around. And I haven't been this excited since I was reading the cross gen stuff, because that was a universe. And before that, it was Valiant, right? It was like those were big deals. Then they fizzled out too fast, right? They like went all in and then tried to do a big crossover event, and then the whole thing crumbled, right? So don't do that. Um, so I'm just excited that maybe this one will stick around for a while, and we'll be able to like really be um, we'll be able to really have emotional connections to a lot of these characters in a couple years time, you know.
I mean, he is a cool design though, I will give it that. Like
Hmm.
I think there's been real attention to design work in all of this. These are no these names, these artist names, Jason Fabok, Gary Frank, Brian Hitch. I mean, you know, they are professionals. In fact,
Yeah,
I think Brian Hitch on Redcoat, which is
oh,
probably my favorite of the three,
that's my
that's
favorite.
that's the best Hitch work I've seen
Yeah,
in a
in a
while.
long time.
Yeah, because he did some stuff at DC, did some stuff at Marvel, and I was like, it doesn't feel like his heart was in it, right? But Redcoat, I was like, no, his heart's in it. Gary Frank, his heart is in this book, in the character designs, and um, it's great. They're great to look at. The production is
Oh
top
yeah,
notch.
yeah. The attention to detail, the names that are the creative names that are on these, it gives a little bit more oomph to what they're trying to build, and gives me um more patience with it, as well as more hope that it'll really have some longevity to it.
That's interesting that you said that patience, yeah, because like what piggyback on what Brian said about a shared universe, you
Mhm.
have to have
You
patience,
have to
right?
have patience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you want to support it and see where it's going to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. Pants, your thoughts on Geiger?
I really, really enjoyed looking at Gary Frank artwork. Whether it's superhero or even this, which is non-superhero, just every little detail, I just really enjoy it. It feels to me realistic. If you can even see where I'm going with that. So that's what I really took away from this, how much I loved Gary Frank's artwork. And usually Jeff Johns would draw me in to, no pun intended, draw me into reading these books. I don't know. I just maybe because I'm just not into comics as much as I used to be. I just wasn't as jazzed about this, and maybe I didn't give it a fair shake. Maybe I need to reread it again. I don't know, but for me, it didn't really pull me in, make me want to read more. I was, especially now knowing that there's even a more backstory, because there was even an editor's note in here, like, oh, see Ghost Machine #1. It's like, oh, I thought it was #1. What, I didn't even. So I was like, I don't need to read that. No. Um, Good concept. I like what was going on in the first issue, but I just didn't make me initially want to see where the rest of the story is going. And not that it's bad. It's not bad at all. It's just it didn't pull me in as much as I was hoping it would.
I do like it for the character of Geiger. I like the design element that he can go back and forth between looking human and being phosphorus.
Again, it's the artwork. It's the you trust these creators' names if you followed them, and we've been
Hmm.
reading comics for so long that these some of these names are instant buys. Um, They gave most of these first issues, they gave some secret files. There's like little
Yeah.
Who's Who pinups, which were fun.
The timeline in the back was fun. Kind of see where all these are set in.
Yeah, and in the Ghost Machine one shot, I really liked this. It's narrated by the same people who narrate Geiger's story in his first volume. And this is what they have to say about all of these characters. Their stories are ones that begin in war, where violence forever changes the soldiers who fight it, but also where unbreakable bonds are forged. And that's very true of Redcoat. That's very true of Geiger. It's very true of Junkyard Joe, who's not part of what we're talking about today. Um, and then there's other characters on that timeline that I assume will also have um, that theme to it, which is great. So, like for instance, in Junkyard Joe, in the in the back pages, Johns and Company, they started doing this whole thing where they were like, "Hey, if you have a vet in your family, write to us about them, and we'll put them on here." And people did. They like talked
Hmm.
about their father, their great great grandfather, some other family member. Um, and there was a lot of like donations to certain organizations. Like they went all in on that Junkyard Joe, and I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's very
Nice.
cool.
Well, I really liked Redcoat, probably the best of the three, because I found there was a nice mixture of humor in there, and I liked the whole idea of like the historical figures in there. Um, that so of the three, I probably liked the most because, and again, I love Brian Hitch's art. I'm not a huge fan of his overall of his work, but definitely this really worked well. I mean, see Benjamin Franklin for goodness sake turn up in this. I was like, wait, what?
Well,
That's kind of interesting. I kind of dig that.
and something that to me was a little bit different this time with Brian Hitch's artwork is, so many times in the past we look at him and I love when he does it. We look at him on grand scales, grand pictures, splash pages, massive images with great
Cinematic,
detail,
right?
very cinematic. This was a lot more grounded, a lot more small in that capacity. It wasn't, it was at a human level, eye to eye, not overly grandiose like what we're used to seeing and expecting from Brian Hitch. So um, that really was interesting to see a lot of character work, detail, and again, all these other things he's done that I've seen have all that, but this was just on a smaller scale that was more personal,
Mhm.
following these characters through the story.
You know something else? On the side of writing, this is the one of the three that I think diverged the most from Jeff Johns' usual voice as a writer, which leads me to think that maybe Hitch was a little more involved than he usually is in the writing end of things. He might have
Yeah, could
contributed
be.
some dialogue,
Yeah.
and so maybe he could have kept things. Maybe he personally stepped in and saw to it that he was able to keep things at that intimate human level you were talking about, Shay. Maybe he's tired of blockbusters and
Yeah.
wants to be able to draw something like that for a change.
Adam, how would you describe this book?
Well, it's kind of a picaresque narrative. It's starring this raffish, charming rogue of a character. He's a thief. He's a liar. He's a scoundrel. He's a cowardly mercenary soldier who just happened to stumble into the wrong place at the right time and ends up snagging immortality for himself. But his reward for that is that he's always hungry and always poor as he continues to stumble along through centuries of existence, running afoul of all kinds of interesting people and historical figures. And I think we read somewhere in like the background literature about this that Benedict Arnold is another immortal that came out of the American Revolution with this power bestowed upon him or inflicted on him, perhaps is a better way to put it.
Yeah.
And it's I think that the same little introductory prose piece described Simon Pure, the main character, and some of the other characters we'll be encountering as like semi-folkloric figures like Paul Bunyan or John Henry. I mean, I don't think that piece used the words tall tale, but it definitely applies to what we're getting here in Redcoat. And I mean, in this first issue, we get the Redcoat himself. We get some pretty exaggerated version, shall we say, of John Hancock, Ben Franklin, George Washington, et al., who are depicted as kind of thieves and scoundrels themselves who have stolen black magic from the American tribes. and are using it to fuel their quest for independence, which is a much darker and more negative take on America's founding fathers than one usually finds in American comics. And again, Hitch being British, that's probably some of his influence being shown there. Um, but yeah, so we've got like a tall tale version of Albert Einstein, like a little 12-year-old kid whose first language is German, but he's spouting English, broken English after only 3 days study. That's a perfect tall tale detail right there. I think the play between those two is going to be kind of amusing.
Yeah, they said that in the development of it. They were like, look, we're not trying to, teach you history with this book.
Yep. Trying to make you happy, which is Brian's litmus test for enjoyment of this stuff, and it's using the same scale. That's why I add my voice to Pants and Shane and saying that this is the one of the three that I liked the most.
Yeah, me too.
Because it was fun, and it didn't take itself too seriously, and the protagonist in particular doesn't take himself too seriously because he knows he doesn't deserve to be taken too seriously.
And I enjoyed the infusion of some fantastical into the American history and lore of historical figures we know, and yet we're talking about mystical, magic, immortality, things that are not lent easily to American history. I mean, it just doesn't exist that way.
Yeah. Although they bring up the Freemasons, right? They bring up the
Mhm.
Freemasons. There has been. Go ahead.
And that pyramid with the eyeball on it that you can see on some American currency,
Yeah.
that's an image associated with the Freemasonry movement that Peter's talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's long been, myths and legends about Washington and just,
Just ask Nick Cage,
Yeah.
the national
thinking that.
treasure.
I was
That's the
thinking
whole
that.
point.
It's still a fun movie.
Those of you who read John Ostrander and Tom Mandrake's Spectre series back in the 90s, there was a long, like a 12-issue long story they did called, I think, The Haunting of America, which kind of delved into the same themes, which postulated that the founding fathers dabbled in sorcery, and that's how the superhero Uncle Sam of the Freedom Fighters first came about, because they'd created this American talisman, this magic coin with that eyeball pyramid on it that I just mentioned. And so it's kind of digging into the same theme, but it's painting the founding fathers in an even darker, more defamatory light than that story did.
I love revolutionary stuff. I don't know why. You give me a revolutionary movie, TV, musical, I'm watching it. So when I was reading this, I was like, I love it. Even though he's a redcoat, like it still works because of all the character stuff that you guys were talking about. The artwork works. I love the little mystery behind, okay, so what is that symbol? And because it's a shared universe, you actually see that symbol on the dog tags that Junkyard Joe wears. So that, so if you go and delve into that miniseries, there's a little connection there. But we don't know what it is just yet, Um, the character is fun. He gets to travel, or we get to travel into other years because he is immortal. And then he introduces us to other concepts within this shared universe, like the Northerner, who seems almost like this I don't know if he was a slave, but he fought in the Civil War, and he almost feels like he's going to be the phantom stranger of this universe, where he's like a very solemn figure. But he also might be long-lived. And just the whole concept of Redcoat, right away my mind was like, okay, so does that mean, can we get a Black Coat versus Redcoat miniseries? I
Yeah,
would
right.
love that. If you remember Black Coat from
Yeah.
Ape
I was
Entertainment.
just going to bring that up, actually, talking of Revolutionary War era stories.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I would love to see that crossover. Great call, Peter.
That would be amazing.
And we mentioned a little bit of comedy in this one too. I like the page where, like Peter said, you travel through time with him to different years, and he's talking about things that he offended women on, and he's getting slapped. He's like, well, I probably deserve that, and probably that, but each one's a different year with a different woman smacking him for being stupid in some way.
Gotta love a comic with some comedy montages in it.
Who do you see? What actor do you think would play Redcoat? Because I think
Well, you can tell, like, because Brian Hitch is doing his Brian Hitch thing where he takes a famous person and draws them in the comic. I recognize his face. Like as soon as I read this book, I'm like, oh, that actor, I know that actor.
Hmm.
He's been in a couple of things now, but I
I'll
can't
give.
think of his name, so I can't tell you what movie he's
All
in.
right.
But you probably know Peter, right?
Well, I don't think we're thinking of the same thing. So if you're gonna, I was thinking Chris Helmsworth.
That's what I was thinking.
It's not. It's a Chris Hemsworth lookalike.
No, Hemsworth. Okay.
It's another guy who, if you're not paying attention, you think it's maybe him, and then you realize, oh wait, it's not quite him. But they're very similar actors, and I wish I could tell you, because if you looked at a picture of him, you'd be like, oh yeah, now I get it, right? In fact, I'm gonna search for Chris
Okay.
Hemsworth lookalike because I wait. He was in. Okay, I know. He was in Shantaram, the actor in the Apple TV show Shantaram.
Oh, Charlie Hunnam. Hunnam?
Yep. Yep.
Hume
Look
Hunnam.
at that and tell me that's not him.
I could see that too. Yeah, I could see that.
Was he in Anarchy? Yeah, Sons of
Yep.
Anarchy too.
Hmm.
I could see that.
Also, for those playing along at home, Shantaram, I think, is the greatest book I've ever read. Full stop. It's a phenomenal, phenomenal book. So, not to derail the conversation.
Who else? Any other thoughts on Redcoat?
Well, it was funny when the week that they came out, and I told you I bought Rook. I actually picked up Redcoat. I wasn't paying attention to the names, and I flipped through it and went, "Oh, look at that! Like a Revolutionary War book." Oh, and I put it back on the shelf because I don't like American history. I find it boring, dreadfully boring, and I put it back. I showed it to Clara when we were standing there. I was like, "This actually kind of looks interesting, but I don't need to spend my money on that." But I put it back, and then I rushed back and bought it the next week because when I realized it was part of the universe, then I was interested, and I really, really enjoyed it, and I can't wait for issue 2. But it's just you were Peter saying like, "Oh, you love this kind of a Revolutionary War history," and I'm like, "Meh."
I love the
That was just
potential. Just that, like Adam was talking about, like all these characters, like he meets Annie Oakley, right? And just what are they going to do with a young Einstein? You know, what does
Yeah.
what does he call him? He calls him uh
Oh, der Zauberer, which means the sorcerer in German.
yeah. And what does Redcoat call Einstein? Oh, an extortion, like an extortionist, like he's going to extort him for his what he believes he's because he's a sorcerer or whatever.
Mhm.
That's great. That's just great. So, all right, you want to talk about Rook Exodus? I know Brian said you really like this. Shane, I thought this was probably right in your wheelhouse with masks and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, I enjoyed it.
so I don't know. I guess this is going to be heresy, but like I wasn't familiar with the name Jason Fabok. Like I don't know what he worked on, but I'd never heard of him or
Hmm.
don't remember hearing of them. You know me. Um, so I was like, "Oh, Jeff Johns, and this cover is cool. If the interior artwork looks like this cover," and then I flipped and went, "Wow, the interior artwork looks like this cover. This is amazing. I got to buy this." And that's like as far as I took it when I was at the shop, right? Um, and it's gorgeous, and I love. I'm like I've really sort of been in a sci-fi phase for like the last couple years, and um, so I was really pleased to see a sci-fi book, and I thought the concept was kind of interesting, and the fact that they had like manufactured this world, and then they pulled the money out, and then it's crumbling, and people are leaving, and it's like what the hell, and then these like animal control helmets and stuff, and these like rangers who are there or whatever. It's like, oh, that's actually pretty cool. Um, so yeah, I really liked it. I don't know if it's my favorite. I think I kind of just like them equally, like in all different ways.
Hmm.
I would be very hard pressed to say which one I like the most. Because again, I'm really thinking about the collective, what it's going to become all together, you know. But I loved it.
That's one of their missions too, is anything that's not directly tied into the shared universe, they want to make sure that they're doing other genres, sci-fi, horror, uh, all age or family-oriented books. So this is definitely in the sci-fi vein. Um, Jason Fabok has been doing a lot of stuff for. He did do, I should say, a lot of stuff for DC. Probably people might know. Um, his run on Justice League. He did the Three Jokers book with Jeff Johns. And he's yep, there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like his stuff too. And he kind of it's a little bit like in the Gary Frank world a little bit,
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm. A little bit,
They're
yeah.
yeah, because they're not really going into cartooning. They're kind of, solid with their design work and stuff.
And
Um,
also used a lot of 9-panel grids. I think they both use a lot.
Yeah.
although I was glad to see that Johns wasn't like so beholden to that. He
Right,
definitely,
right.
especially in that Geiger first the series, he did it sometimes. But I was like, oh, okay, good. He's letting his artist break away. Hitch, that's not a thing for Hitch. He wants
Yeah.
to do double page spreads and you know. Um, so these characters are called wardens. They have these helmets that they're neurally linked into whatever type of animal that they control, whether it's
And
uh
it's an entire species of an animal.
yeah,
It's not like multiple animals. It's one helmet, one species.
right.
Or one family of species anyway, like
Yeah.
crows, rooks, and ravens, for example.
Right. And swine, the warden swine, controlling warthogs and
Wild boars.
wild
Yeah.
boars. And then they talk about, although if you read the one shot, the Ghost Machine one shot, you got introduced to, is it Direwolf?
It is direwolf,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. And then this one, we meet, who's the one that we meet?
Ursaw
Or saw.
Ursaw, yeah.
wears a bear mask and has a chainsaw. Yeah,
So
it's just
fantastic.
I'm not surprised that Shane was into this as much as he is because it feels very toyetic, this whole
Yeah, it
like
does.
it's good science fiction, it's dystopian, it's well world built, but the added gimmick of the masks and the animal control, which is a good gimmick and it definitely draws me into, but it in the end it kind of feels like a dark, mature, elevated take on like a late 80s toy franchise that never actually existed. I mean,
Yeah.
even the names, like Ursaw, Swine, Rook, you can just
Yeah.
kind of picture them with little trademark symbols after them underneath a little picture of the action figure and its accessories on the back of a package,
Yeah. I can see that. I like the Earth 2 kind of slant to it. There
Okay,
was that show back on, what was it, NBC,
I think so. Yeah.
when Sequest was on, and it was called Earth 2, and it didn't last long. I thought it should have been given a little bit more longevity. Tim Curry was in it at one point. But this very much lost in space kind of feel, where they're searching for another place to live because there's something wrong with Earth. And in this case, like was said before, it's now the money's gone, the engine that creates the terraforming is broken, so everything's reverting back, so it's very desolate. All the rich get off because they have the money to, and everyone who's left is the middle to low class, who's the workers, and they don't know what to do now because they're stuck there. um
They're
and then
trying
you
they're
have the
trying to escape, but then, what did he say?
they
Like
keep
one
crashing.
out of
Out of every
30 actually make
51,
it.
yeah,
Yeah. And all the
and the
rest
other 50
crash. Yeah.
crash. um and then yeah, the mask gimmick to it, yeah, I find it very interesting and sci-fi in a good way, and a little bit more mature. So yeah, I understand completely what you're saying, Adam, with the 80s gimmick side to it, but definitely more of an adult version, like you'd said. Definitely more adult for it.
Yeah, it's a fairly pessimistic take on the idea of space colonization, but
Yeah.
it rings true
Yeah.
because at this point in the development of just society in general and even like scientific inquiry, it's you got to figure that when we finally do get into space, we're probably going to be at the mercy of the same corporate shitheels who are in the process of ruining the planet we have. And we'll be dependent on them to get there, and if things fail, to get back. And just seeing these
Yeah.
characters who are the center of this series getting screwed over in multiple ways by this mysterious Better World corporation that got them there in the first place. I mean, we see a flashback to the title character's childhood and his family farm in Illinois and how it mysteriously burned down, and supposedly his father set the fire, but I think we can all assume
Yeah.
that it was in fact agents of Better World who wanted the land for a new spaceport they were building. And so the Rook ends up there, and then he ends up stuck there and doing his best to continue, kind of like Geiger, really doing his best to be his own idea of a good person in this impossible environment full of backstabbing fellow wardens and inexplicable giant monsters rampaging around. Because there's you really have to wonder why Better World, if everything that's up there was imported from Earth and or based on Earth, why would they bring bears and wolves and mountain lions in the first place? I mean, there might be an explanation for that later on, but I think we all know the real explanation is alien worlds with giant carnivorous monsters are more exciting than alien planets without those things. So there they are.
Well, and two things that went through my head. There's the one page where Rook is going back into his city, and it's a fairly large splash page. And part of me thought, even though this is a little bit more destructive looking, I thought Night of the Comet as well, because I just love that B grade 80s sci-fi movie. And I also thought when they were delving into the corporation side, I could only think of Aliens, where they're more concerned that fact that in Alien they blew up the ship and how much it cost than what was actually happening. So going along with your take on the corporation side of it, Adam, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, and it looks good. I mean, the coloring looks good. The artwork looks great. You can't fault any of these for their artwork. I know, maybe it's not your,
No. And we're learning that Jason, are we sure about Fabok? Because I've been pronouncing it Fabok for the last 8 years.
Could be.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I always did Fabok as
Okay,
well.
let's send it the Eric Nolan Withington signal, because he always seems to know. But however you pronounce his name, we're learning that he draws some really great monsters. Because those giant bears, man, gorgeous and terrifying.
Well, I'm curious to know who are the other wardens. If you read the one shot, it was teased that there's going to be a war between these wardens, which makes sense because they're the only things that are really left that have power. Then there's the other added thing of, as much as they can control whatever they control, there's also some instinctual stuff that comes back to them.
Right.
And
feedback.
Yeah, and who knows if any of those animals will turn on their warden, right? Because when he takes the helmet off and like the birds are still circling, and it makes you wonder, are they just waiting for him to die so they can swoop down and just eat him? So,
and it seems like having that helmet on is very taxing to the person at times, not only for what they're getting from the animals, but just taxing for what technology is doing to them as they have it on.
Because you notice when he takes it off, his face is all scratched up.
Yeah.
So it must not be an easy thing to
get on and off.
In the synergy with them. So there's a lot of potential in this one for just some really great stuff.
Yeah. A lot of cool concepts at play.
Yeah.
Going in, this is the one I was expected to be least interested in. That's far from the case.
Oh, great.
And I know we said it before, across all of these books, this is what I like comic art to look like. This is very much in the realm of the 80s with George Perez and oh my God, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez.
There you go. Okay, yeah.
Oh, God, I couldn't think of and things we read in through the 90s and 2000s. And then I don't mind the experimentation that's gone through a lot of comic art in the last 10 years, but this feels like coming home again too. When you open up a book and see this high of quality, this kind of art, the coloring is there. It just feels right to me.
Certainly doesn't disappoint.
Any other thoughts? Do you think you'll keep up with any one of the title or all the titles?
I'll be buying them all. Yeah.
I had ordered these 3. They should be coming in my shipment soon. But I'll have to go back and get. I don't think I got the one shot, and I'm curious to try and track down the Geiger miniseries and read that. But yeah, I'd like to keep up with it as long as the quality stays with it, and again, try to be a little patient with it to see where the story leads us.
Well, then perhaps I will borrow them from you, Shane.
Well, plus the good thing about the other thing I noticed about all these stories too is that Johns is trying to also make sure that there is a human element involved. So in the Geiger miniseries, there's these 2 young kids that he comes across in his adventure. And in Junkyard Joe, Junkyard Joe's really great. So Junkyard Joe's about basically it's G.I. Robot from DC Comics.
Okay.
A robot who gets sent to Vietnam. He meets a squad. Um, they're like, oh my God, a robot. But they get to know him, and he gets to know them. Something happens to them, and then he disappears. But the only surviving member of the squad turns Junkyard Joe into a comic strip, and it becomes super popular animation, cartoons, which is animation, toys, merchandise, all this other stuff. But years go by, and nobody knows what happens to the robot. In fact, they think the guy is probably, they're like, you saw a robot in Vietnam? Then the story takes place in the present day. The robot returns, and it goes from there. And then there's also a family that's involved with that as well. One of the things that's so cool too is like the family that's involved. Um, the kids are Korean American. The kids that are involved in Geiger are African American. Geiger himself, Tariq, I believe, is Asian, Middle Eastern, Asian or Indian. So like they're also paying attention to that as well, which is like that's great. But it's not the center point of the story, but it's like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Anybody can be part of these adventures. Um, so there's a lot of care involved in these books, which I'm really appreciating, and I just want to know more. I just want to know so much more. So I'm excited.
I was saying to Clara today, actually at dinner, um, how I have. So she works every Wednesday, and I pick her up every Wednesday, and I get there 15 minutes before her shift is over, so I have time to peruse the shelves and look at everything, right? And it's been so much fun because I haven't gone to the comic shop weekly in, over 20, probably almost 25 years, right? As long as I've started buying comics online. And I went in with Kevin and Jim. Somebody used to shop at Golden Eagle, and the three of us would like all order together so we could get a better discount, like in like 2000 or whatever. It was like it's such a rigmarole. I had to go drive over to Jim's house to pick up my books and drop off my list of what I wanted, like papers with check boxes on them. It was like a whole thing. But anyway, I haven't gone to the shop weekly for a long time, and it feels awesome, right? To be actually buying something every week. I still prefer trade paperbacks as like a format because they're nice on my shelf and they don't get dumped to boxes and forgotten, right?
Yeah.
But the joy of like with the Transformers GI Joe books, right? There's one a week. Now I'm not buying Void Rivals in comic form because I already bought the first trade, so now I got to buy it in trade, so I'm not buying those. But there's one a week in that shared universe. And now with these, it's like now these all came out on the same week with issue 1, but will they start staggering them with issue 2s and 3s? I don't know. And when the next wave comes out, then we'll hopefully have something every week or whatever. And that's what I'm talking about when you have like a shared universe, even if they're not super tightly coupled in the beginning, they're more spread out until eventually they'll intersect. It's exciting to get like a little dose every week, a little dose. But when you're buying them like from DCBS and you get your shipment once a month, it's like you just get this big pile and then you're like, I don't know where I should start. Which one should I read first? Whereas like I'm
Yeah.
going to get to read them every single week. And I'm really looking forward to that because I haven't been that excited about something in a really long time. Like I don't even remember when. Probably Valiant is the last time because I was cross-gen, I was buying in the collected editions, right? Like they would put out that,
Yeah.
which I still think is like the coolest thing anybody's ever done in comics, is not a trade of all the same title, but a trade of one of each title every month. That was super cool. But anyway, Valiant was the last time I was buying a month, like a regular book weekly that was part of a collected universe that wasn't Marvel or DC. And I was immensely excited about every single title. I bought every single Valiant one, and it was amazing. At the time, incredible, right? I feel like that again. This literally makes me feel 20 years old. So I'm so
Oh,
excited.
nice. Very nice.
And you can get issue 2 of Geiger the first week of May, and then the next week is Redcoat, and then the week after that is Rook. So there you go.
Perfect.
Well, and I agree with what you're saying, Brian, about excitement and different things. I mean, I've always been a comic fan of especially DC and some Marvel, but it's been a long time since I've been excited about some of those stories that I'm reading in there. Reading the Energon universe, reading this, reading the new Star Trek stuff, that's exciting and it's really well done.
Speaking of, a few minutes ago, Eric Noling Wethington. Let's get some feedback from our last Off the Rack episode on Helen of Windorn, where
Huh?
Eric on YouTube says the first comparison that struck me when reading this issue was John Carter of Mars, not only for the time period and the traveling between world aspects, but the John Carter book was told from the perspective of his nephew reading his journals after his death. There's a little bit of a Narnia as seen through the magician's lens vibe as well, given the setting. As for Helen herself, let's not forget that when we first see her, she's still grieving the loss of her father. It makes sense. She's constantly drinking herself into a stupor. And then he also adds, it should also be noted that Robert E. Howard was a bit of a wild character and committed suicide when he was 30. So there's the comparison for Helen's father.
So I recall after his mother died, he went out into the hospital parking lot and just shot himself right then and there.
Wow.
So responding to, a bunch of the things that we brought up in that episode. So you too can leave us feedback under this episode and have it be read in a future episode. So, Pants, Adam, you want to give us a little rundown on the convention you hit this weekend?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Brian sent forth the clarion call to see if anybody wanted to go with him to the Lehigh Valley Comic Convention in Allentown. And I answered, and the two of us.
I answered, I just couldn't go.
Two of us riding nowhere.
Yep, and he still knows the words of that song better than I do. But anyway, we went to Allentown. We went to the fairground complex. There's one building off to one side that was that housed this convention. It was like two large rooms with an artist's alley and a lot of vendors and a lot of attendees because we got there about half hour after the doors opened and thought we'd be able to walk right in. Not so. There were two long lines, one for people paying by cash and one for people paying by credit to get into this place. So it was very healthily attended.
Wow.
We just kind of spent the whole day. I was mostly shopping myself, just scavenging for decent bargains in the bargain bins, and Brian had his own agenda.
Yeah, well, yeah, he's not kidding. We got there, and it took about 20 to 25 minutes to get in the building.
Oh,
Now, that also had a lot to do with they had one person cash, one person credit that the windows like, oh, okay. But I was so stunned by the attendance. I was like, well, this probably is a good sign. And it was very well attended, lots of vendors, lots of genres and price ranges to look for. You had toys, you had comics, you had the artists there. It was a treat. I didn't spend too much on the comics. What did you? I didn't even know what you picked up, Adam. All the stuff you picked up. I saw some of the things, but
Well, a bunch of doubles for
oh
one
no,
thing. 'Cause
Oh.
yeah, I mislaid my most important want list. So I ended up double buying, I don't know, like 17 different comics.
oh my!
Yep, that many.
I haven't done that many in a shop, but I've done a few.
Yeah, and it's only been a few days, but already it kind of escapes me which of the things I picked up were of the most significance. I found the first issue of the Martian Manhunter American Secrets Prestige Format miniseries by Gerard Jones and Eduardo Barreto,
Nice.
which I've been looking for a couple of years. And I could have picked up Ditko's Shade the Changing Man #1, but fortunately I remembered that I already had it. And I could have picked up the first appearance of Howard Chaykin's Iron Wolf character from Weird Worlds #8. And unfortunately, I thought I already had it, but didn't. So I left that one behind. Yep,
And
there are actually some quarter bins, which you don't find that often anymore.
Wow.
Yeah,
Quarter
yeah, yeah.
bins. Jeez.
And I think you also went through the cheap trades and got some things for some prizes, I recall.
That is correct. Yep, since Chris has been good enough to skim the trade bins at the North Jersey shows he's been going to supply me with Muddle the Murd prizes, I thought I should chip in myself a little bit. So found a few $5 trades, which will be appearing as prizes in upcoming episodes whenever muddling comes about.
Yeah, I found a few things in some $2 bins and dollar bins. Like I said, I found all 3 issues for $2 each of the aforementioned Jason Fabok, I'm going to say, Batman 3 Jokers, because I never read it and just kind of curious for $2 a pop for the issues. I got the
Sure.
whole set. Fantastic. Couple of Doctor Who's I didn't have. Couple of Ever After books from the sequel after Fables ended. I got. And then stumbling in the dollar bins, I came across 2 copies with different covers for parody presses, I guess. The Death of Stupid Man, back from the '90s. It's their take on the Death of Superman. It caught my eye because I thought I had a page of original artwork from that series. After further discussion and checking, it actually is a page from the Reign of Stupid Men comic that I have. So I got to find that. But there was also a lot of great artists and creators at the show. They had, I think, Wendy and Richard Peeney were there. Kyle Baker, Jim Ballant had a huge line because he was doing some free sketching. Jim
Oh,
Calafiore.
I have one of those.
Yep, Amy Chu, Kevin Conrad, Franco was there from Art and Franco. Always good
Wow.
to see him. He always remembers me. He goes pants. And I love that. And sitting next to him was Lee Weeks, for goodness
Oh,
sake, because this is
wow.
kind of local for him.
Yeah.
And he remembered me, and it was very nice to see him. But there were 2 creators I wanted to seek out specifically. First was inker Prentice Rollins, who I think I mentioned on the Art of the Pants, where he inked some pages from DC in like the '90s, like DC 1 Million as example. And very nice man, and we chatted. I showed him some of the art I had of his, and he had some pages, and I'm looking through it, and it's like, um, he had a page of art where I have the page after that, and it's like one of my things is getting consecutive pages. Unfortunately for me and for him, he did not have a working credit card reader,
Oh,
and I didn't have enough cash. And talking to me, actually wasn't really too keen on parting with some of the art. He's felt an attachment to, which I think, hey, that's great. But it's like, oh, I would have loved to have that. So I have his contact information, and we'll see down the road. And then also another person I went to see was creator, writer, inker, Keith Champagne was there because I know he worked on some DC stuff. I said, let's see what kind of pages he has. So I'm going through his pages, and I come across a page from, remember the title Young Heroes in Love?
Oh,
sure.
sure. Yeah, fantastic series.
So he inked a page there that had electric blue Superman on it, and the rest of the team is like, oh, I'm gonna get this. And it was in an unmarked pile with pricing, and across from it had another page that was priced on the very top was a page that was consecutive to one I already owned from him, which he actually gave to me 16 years ago when I bought a bulk of pages from him online. So he had no recollection of that. I was like, I got to get, so he had a working credit card reader. Long story short, I got those 2 pages, which may show up in a future Art of the Pants episode. So stay tuned to Patreon, boys and girls. Um, so yeah, I had a great time. Like, pretty. Now this is the first time I've had it at this location, and I think it was a pretty good location. Would you say, Murder? There's a lot of people there, a lot of room to walk around.
Oh yes, very spacious. I think it was a good fit for what they were trying to do there. And you told me that this Lehigh Valley Comic Con thing happens like 2 or 3 times a year.
Yep, it's happening twice more this year. And let's see if I can get the dates and locations if you'd choose to attend as I scroll. Yes, August 10th and December 7th of 2024 at the Lehigh Carbon Community College. So
Ah,
There at
So
the
I have been to those before. They are nice.
Yes.
I've gone up with Jamie of Earth 2 every now and then because he lives up in that direction.
Yeah. Lehigh Valley Comic Convention.com. And as Adam and I were going through the back issues, someone came up to us and said, "Oh, hey, Pants." I'm like, um, "Oh, okay." I figured it was because of the name on the back. I was wearing my Phillies jersey. It says Pants on the back.
Number
And I goes,
52.
"Yeah, yes." And he goes, "Oh, I love listening to Comic Geek speak." I'm like, "Oh, I guess you know me because of the jersey." He goes, "No, I recognized you." I'm like, "Not my voice, recognized me." I'm like, "Well, that's cool." And he was could have been more nicer. Said, now I don't believe him, but he said that seeing us was the highlight of the show for him. His name was Dale.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice man. I was like, well, I haven't had one of those experiences in years, and they always make me feel great. Me and the listeners, they say nice things about me. They don't have to. It's no obligation, but it's kind of things like with this anniversary. I'm kind of get inspired to do other things, and that's really nice to see. So thank you, Dale, for taking the time to stop and talk to us.
What did it cost to get into the show?
Oh, it was only $10 to get in, which I thought was
Nice.
quite reasonable.
Yeah.
It was a 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. show.
Ooh, that's pretty
Yeah,
late too.
yeah. So now the next ones I think are only 10 to 4 later on this year, but it was well worth it. If I'm not busy, I'll check them out. Maybe Shane, you can tag along next time.
Yeah,
Now,
I've
Peter, I'm sorry it's on a Saturday again, Peter. I'm so sorry.
Well, in August, I think I can,
planned ahead.
plan ahead.
All right, well, put that in pencil.
Pencil. What's that?
Yeah, and it wound up I only worked for like 2 hours that Sunday too, so Saturday, so I probably should have gone.
You should have gone.
Yeah.
It was a hoot and a half.
You want to wrap up on some CGS 20th anniversary trivia for year 2?
Sure.
The year of the Panther appearance. Yes,
Year 2.
absolutely.
Oh, I don't have any questions about you. Sorry.
No, that's okay. You're not an obligation, but I came in September of 2006. Although my first on-air appearance was when we were driving down to HeroesCon 2006. But neither here nor there. Carry on.
All right, sorry. I just did this while you guys were yapping. So
Well, thanks for paying attention. Or thanks for prepping. Good Lord. I mean, how much time do you have to on your
I
hands?
know.
He's
I
gonna listen
totally
to it
forgot.
again.
I totally
Some
forgot.
people can multitask.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't yell. It's we're all.
Hey, we're busy making videos, all right? You know,
Yeah,
we don't have time to prep for this show anymore.
Right. You're getting a huge ego. My goodness.
An ego. I'm just telling you where I'm spending my attention because I have a
know.
one-track mind. So right now it's on CGS video. So
Yeah, I'll ego you both out because behind you guys, I'm emailing Pans about his videos and I'm texting Brian about
because
those
I never
videos.
stop because I'm
I
like,
know.
Peter, I got another idea.
I
Yeah.
actually had an idea. I had an idea today as I was driving for an upcoming Off the Pants. Oh no, off the pants. Good God!
Wow.
No, the pants are not. No.
We don't want off the pants.
That's another spinoff.
Oh geez, Art of the Pants.
CGS After Dark.
Yeah.
Look, I am wearing shorts.
Oh my God!
I'm wearing
glare.
shorts too.
The glare.
Our eyes.
I had an idea to do a little video tidbit for Art of the Pants. Made me laugh out loud. I've actually wrote it down in the script form. I can't wait to shoot this, and so I'm like, even me, I'm getting ideas for video. Look at me.
It's a new.
Peter, I have another idea. We got to talk later, okay?
I have tons of ideas. What is it? Me, everybody like doing videos just from our bottom half, no pants, off the pants.
No,
Stop
seriously.
it!
Before I was gonna text you, I'm like, I'll just talk to him after the show.
right.
I got another idea.
Oh, cool.
It really is
Hey.
it's a new era here at CGS. Who knew the
We're just catching up.
well, I mean, come on. We're older than YouTube, so it's okay. All right, here we go. Year 2 questions. I hope they're right. I didn't confirm any of this.
My God!
What was not including Crusaders, what was our first movie commentary? Not review, but commentary.
Catwoman.
Yeah, Catwoman.
You are correct.
Yeah.
Do you remember, this is a little tricky, do you remember what kicked us off into a violence in comics conversation for 1 or 2? Shane, do you want to go first? It was a specific comic.
No, I think I know what it is.
Was it DMZ?
No.
Is it Identity Crisis with the like refrigerator scene or whatever?
No.
I mean, I get.
You're close. Adam,
I
you want to
think
give us? Wait, let Adam, since you guessed one.
I don't even have a guess.
Okay, go ahead, Pants.
I want to say it was Infinite Crisis where the psycho pirate got his
No,
eyes popped. No,
no.
was it Infinite Crisis?
It was Countdown to Infinite
Oh,
Crisis.
Countdown!
It was
Oh,
the death of
Death
Blue
of Blue
Beetle.
Blue
Beetle.
Beetle.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Again, I didn't research this, but I'm fairly sure.
So we're all right then, basically. There are
No,
no
I'm pretty
prizes here.
I'm pretty sure that's the one. Okay. We used to do Book of the Months. We used to do a DC, a Marvel, and an other. Then
Yep.
we started to do manga. What was
Yep.
the first manga? Raise your hands. Who wants to? Oh, I saw Shane first.
Ah,
Death Note,
Death Note. Yes. Death
and then
Note.
it was Monster.
Yep. And we did 2 volumes. 2
Yep.
volumes. Apparent.
raise your hand.
Apparently, we're getting. If we ever do the trivia one, I
Yeah.
gotta figure out some way.
We're flexing for the buzzer.
Or you need like a like something.
Honka, 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 honka.
A ooga horn, yeah.
A lockout button like Jeopardy.
Squeeze me gently.
Apparently, we were the first podcast to interview artist and creator Tony Moore back in July of 2006. I should give some dates while I do this, but it was not for Walking Dead. And at the time, Cara Fairfield was also on the episode. Do you remember the title we did interview him for? Pants.
Exterminators.
Exterminators. That is correct.
Such a good book.
Right?
Oh.
Another one of those like really creative titles that it lasted for as long as it lasted, but it probably could have lasted longer. Okay. We used to do a lot of event episodes. And we did one on Annihilation #1. Can you name the 3 creators that were on that episode with us?
Well, that was Lanning, Abnett and Lanning, right? Were they not on? They were.
This is Annihilation #1. So this was the
wait.
event, not the miniseries, not the like spin-off miniseries. This was.
Oh,
I think I know one of them.
Who do you have?
Keith Giffen.
That's correct.
I may have a second, but I'll let somebody else go.
Oh wait, Adam has one.
I seem to recall talking to the editor. Was that Mark Powers?
Andy Schmidt.
Andy Schmidt. Okay,
Alright.
that was the other. Okay, yep.
And the artist Andrea DeVito. So we had all 3: Keith Giffen, Andrea DeVito, and Andy Schmidt.
Individually or all at the same time?
All in the same episode.
Wow. No, I mean at the same time interviewing them, or like to do different segments.
No, they were all. Yep, they were all there. All on the
Wow.
phone call.
That must have been a technological marvel at the time, having 3 people on the podcast.
It's our second year. Brian figured it out by then.
No more holding a cell phone up to the microphone.
spent so much money on that phone call recorder thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
All right.
memories.
All right. Here's another. Well, that's too hard. Let me do this one. Episode 200. Which of the geeks was not present at episode 200?
Peter Rios.
That's correct.
That's when Puppet Rios was there.
That's where the puppet came from.
Of
Was waiting for
course.
that one to guess me, but I was actually there for that one.
Yes.
I missed 100 completely. I had to leave 300 early to go sing at a concert, but 200 I was there.
Why weren't you there, Peter? Do you remember?
November 2006. I was in a show at the Walnut Street Theater,
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that Singing in the Rain?
42nd Street. That one was 42nd Street. Yeah.
And thus a puppet was born.
Yeah, really. In November of 2006, we did a spotlight on Legion of Superheroes. Which of our friends was on that episode? It was actually Pants' friend, I think. Yeah. Who was
I mean,
Pants?
Shane knows him as well. It was Dr. Pete Coleman.
Yeah, oh yeah.
That's right.
Yep, when you said Pants knew him, that's when the name
Yeah.
popped into my head. I was
Yeah.
about to guess either like Darren or Paul French, but guess it was Pete Calder.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was a fantastic guest.
He's a
Absolutely.
fantastic guy.
You know, have you ever been at his house? Were you there, Shane, at his house?
Oh yeah, I've been
Oh
there
yeah,
a
so
few
you know the
times.
basement with
Oh,
all the
yeah.
tool. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
yeah. He's got a very impressive collection.
But he's an ophthalmologist,
Yeah.
and at the place of business, he has like a literal display case of like hot toys
Yeah.
with like there's
Geeky stuff.
Christopher Reeve Superman, there's Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man. It's like, oh man.
When did the first when did oh my god, what's it called? Fellowship of the Ring come out? 1999? I think it was.
1,000, I
I
think.
want to say
Maybe later than that.
2000. I was still in college. I remember that.
2000. I went over to the Fox 8, the Why Missing 8, and
2001.
2001, and ran into him with one of my coworkers, and he paid for us to go to the movies when we ran into him in line. He even bought us popcorn.
I have yet to pay for an appointment there because he just doesn't want me to. And so that's very kind of you, sir.
Yeah, he's a very nice gentleman. He's great to talk to.
Wait, what did you say he worked? What is he?
An
Ophthalmologist.
ophthalmologist.
Oh, I don't need one of those. I need a dentist.
You need a proctologist.
You need a dentist. Oh my God.
I have one of those.
We need a
Both.
we can start a whole new video series. Come to my basement.
Yeah, that's not creepy at all.
Oh no.
Okay,
You probably get hits. It's a catchy title. Yeah.
Yeah. Two more questions here. January of 2007, one of our listeners, longtime listener, Mario, joined us for a series of episodes because he was featured on what TV show?
Beauty and the Geek.
Thank you. Someone else had been pets.
Come on.
We were there at the Pittsburgh Comic Con when he auditioned for it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
It was on a lark because they had a sign up table and he was like, I'm going to do it. And then he went like Sunday morning before the con. He had to go to like across Pittsburgh somewhere and go to some place and do a little thing.
And
That's
didn't he
neat.
have to sort of not tell them he was
yeah.
married?
Hey, yep.
No, he wasn't married at the time.
He wasn't married yet.
It wasn't. He couldn't tell
Oh,
me
he
he had a girlfriend. Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
Can they
It's like-
retroactively take him off the show? No. And last question, final question. On the second year anniversary, March 7th, 2007, which longtime comic history, comic creator, writer did we spotlight and interview?
My hand's been up since you mentioned episode 200, Shane. 200.
Well, go
Roy
ahead before his
Thomas.
head explodes.
Roy Thomas.
Roy Thomas, that's right. All right, there you go. There's your year 2 CGS
Yay.
history. I'll be a little more informed and when we get to year 3.
That's all right. It was good questions.
Thank you. We should say a fond farewell and a life well lived to Trina Robbins, who
Yes.
did
Yeah.
pass earlier last week, I believe. Yeah.
You know, it's the darndest thing. That very morning, I think it was the Thursday morning when the news came out, I was looking, as I often do in the mornings, through one of the issues of the official handbook of the Marvel Universe, the deluxe edition, and I was looking at the entry for Patsy Walker, and I was wondering who did the artwork for that. It was a very recognizable cartoony style. I was pretty sure it was the same woman who had done the art for Kurt Busiek's Legend of Wonder Woman miniseries in the 80s, and couldn't think of her name, and turned to the credits in the front and found, oh yeah, it's Trina Robbins. And then later that morning, I go online and discover that she had passed away.
Yeah.
So
April-
I wanted to make it a point not to forget her name again.
April 10th, she died at 85. Any other thoughts? We good?
Again, we seem to be rejuvenated with stuff, and it's like, ooh, I'm looking forward to do some more videos now. So I can't believe that, and I'm looking forward to see Brian's videos too.
Me too.
And there's a Crisis tapes I know is being edited, so looking forward to listening to that.
Yep, new Crisis tape coming up. Whenever
How
I
many
get to
pages
that.
did you get through? Spoilers. How many pages?
We got to the staples of issue
You
number
got to the
7.
staples. Excellent. So it'll be a 4-part episode. What you're telling us now.
No.
No, it'll
Yeah.
be 4 parts.
Adam's
I'm
like,
telling you,
yeah.
it's gonna be 4 parts.
We're expecting the back half to go a little faster because it's more action-oriented and there's less footnoting to do.
You say that now, but when
You
it
say
gets
that
3
every
hours in, you're on like only a quarter right. You know, it's,
You want to bet a 52 page?
no. Oh, I oughta.
On a wager?
No.
All right. thank you, Mike Atchison. Thank you, Wayne Cordova. Thank you, Dave Williams, Martheus Wade, and madebytricia.com. TRICIA. Madebytricia.com. 5 more spots, people. 5 more spots. They're hot.
Yeah.
Email Brian at comicgeekspeak.com.
BRYAN.
All right. And then our email, comicgeekspeak.com. Yeah, no,
comicgeekspeak@gmail.com.
I haven't done this in a while. And follow us on Twitter. Follow us on YouTube. Follow the Patreon. Instagram.
Yeah, comment on YouTube.
Yeah.
I'd like
Let's
to
get the discussion
see
going.
how that works for everyone.
Yeah.
If
It's
everybody...
all Comic Geek Speak is pretty much the name for all these formats. Comic Geek Speak, one word.
But if you're listening to this episode in particular, find this episode on YouTube and tell us if you liked any of these 3 books that we talked about. Right. Let's just start a little conversation and see how it goes. Let's do a test, like an official test.
Start with the like button, then go down to the comment.
Yeah. Do that.
Ring the bell, that whole
and
thing.
let it play in the background while you're in the other room, Remember, didn't we used to ask people to do something like that in the early days of CGS? What the hell?
Oh, remember we were at Podcast Alley? Like,
Yeah.
We would try to bump ourselves up to the,
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Like, if people are like, "Wow, you guys are really late to all this stuff," no, we're not. We've done it in some version, some other place. It's just
like we did freaking Crusaders before there was YouTube.
Yeah,
Hell, my buddy and I basically invented YouTube before YouTube, and it was so successful so fast that we had to shut it down because we couldn't pay for the bandwidth and we couldn't get advertisers fast enough. It was like within a week, his server at work. Just like we killed all the traffic to his data center and we had to pull the plug because all his other paying clients, their websites went down because our video hosting site, and then YouTube sold 6 years later for $1.3 billion or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So I should have been a millionaire multiple times over in my career, and I'm always like I get there before it's ready. I'm always too soon. So now it's not too soon, god damn it, for YouTube.
This is my time.
Yes, it was our time down here, god damn it.
Now you're just being silly. And as always, we're uniting the world's mightiest heroes, one listener at a time.